Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, the only one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 151 of Let's Talk Assassin's Creed. We've got a special guest on the show joining us tonight, so let's meet him first. Jason, welcome, new guest joining us for the first time.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the invite.
And we're going to be talking about Rebellion, the mobile game in the franchise, about which I know very little. So it's probably going to be education for me. But I know a lot of people play it and enjoy it. And Declan and Jason have played the game a lot and are going to sort of teach us all about it. But before we get into that, tell us about your Assassin's Mead, Jason.
Sure. So Assassin's Mead is a blog that I started last year. The main focus of it really is just to kind of educate people on what mead is. A lot of people don't know what it is. I started doing mead probably a decade ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And when I started, it really came from me looking at my genealogy. I'm heavily Norwegian and Icelandic on my father's side, and so that kind of got me interested in it. And one of the first things that I ran into was that mead is not really associated with Vikings as much as it is the entire world. The entire world has really, been drinking mead for thousands and thousands of years. It's probably the oldest fermented beverage in the world. And so that kind of started me on my journey of really looking at mead and starting to make my own mead and kind of perfecting some of my recipes that I have. And then I started getting on chat forums and boards online, and there's really not a lot out there. There aren't some, really large, vast amounts of experts out there that really dabble in mead. And so I did find a little small pocket of people, and have been on their podcast a couple of times and chatted with them about mead, and that's kind of really where the love grew. And I the more I got into it, the more I realized people really don't know what it is. So I said, hey, let's put together Assassin's Mead, kind of meld two of my favorite things in the world, Assassin's Creed and my mead making, and put out some different articles to help people understand what mead is, what it isn't, what goes into it, the different types of mead, how you craft it, and really just the history behind it. So that's Assassin's Mead.
All right. I mean, Declan, I've got news. We're going to change this podcast episode into a mead episode. I have questions. I'm going to ask one question.
Go for it.
Mead isn't beer. Discuss.
It is not. Yeah. So mead is more akin to wine. The only difference in traditional wine and mead is that the fermentation aspect of it, the sugar that goes into it, is bees' honey. It's not grapes. It's not, any other type of brandy that's out there from any other types of fruits. And that's really the only difference. And so when you see these kind of depictions of mead and, the Vikings are drinking out of horns and it's got this big froth on the top of it and it's very foamy, that's probably not historically accurate. Most mead that I have made and drink is still. It's what we call still, so it has no carbonation to it at all. And so that's probably the biggest thing is people are like, oh, maybe it's like a really thick ale or it's a really thick beer, but it's not. It's really more akin to wine. And it's judged the same way as wine, with the different variations and the different characteristics of it and everything. And the only thing I can say that it might be historically accurate is in the early fermentation process of pretty much anything that you make, anything that you ferment. The yeast produce a lot of carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide gets dissolved in the solution. And so what you end up with really early in the process is a lot of foam. In fact, if you go in there and stir it with a stick, if it's not in a large enough container, it might overflow on you because all of that carbon dioxide is released, just like when you open a soda, So maybe early in fermentation, if some people throughout the world early in history are making their mead, it might have been the early stages of fermentation. It probably was pretty frothy or foamy, but generally it's still.
That's fascinating because I would have thought that the fermentation process, as you said, it produces CO2 as a byproduct of the yeast doing its thing.
Right.
How do you get that out of the drink then to make a still drink?
Well, generally, then now you've got two different schools of thought here.
Oh no,
you can,
we're going deep. All right.
It's really what you're aiming for. So if you want a really high ABV, you're only going to get that if you get that carbon dioxide out, because it's going to stop the yeast from producing alcohol. So generally, you stir
Ah,
it on a regular basis. You go in, you add nutrients, and you stir it, and all that carbon dioxide gases off. And so then the yeast are happy again, and they start producing again. But you could bottle it early, and it would absolutely, if it's still early in the fermentation process, you better be really sure that you stabilize it, which is basically making the yeast go to sleep or go dormant. Because if you don't, you get it with what we call a bottle bomb, which is a month from now it may pop off and explode
oh damn.
from gases on the inside of it. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely stop the fermentation process early, and you'd still have that gas, and you could bottle it that way, and it would definitely not be still.
That's fascinating. I'm sorry, Matt Declan. We obviously should talk about rebellion. I've got one more question. So,
Sure.
if you're making I guess a lager or a beer, your ingredients would be barley or wheat, I guess, hops,
hmm
water, and yeast.
hmm
What would be the sort of main or consistent ingredients across all the different kinds of mead?
It's really um, water, yeast, and honey.
Simple as that. Okay.
Simple as that. Yeah.
So there's no bitterness from the hops down or anything like that. So it's quite a sweet drink, I guess.
It depends. If you ferment it all the way out, where the yeast eat most of the sugar, and this is where you get into where it meets the same characteristics as wine. So your
Ah,
wines are what, like dessert wines, like sweet, semi-sweet, and dry, right? Mead is the same way. If the yeast eat all the sugar and produce a lot of alcohol, you can end up with really high ABV, but you're going to end up with really low sweetness.
damn.
So
I need to
it's
find
just
some mead somewhere in this country because I've never tried it. And now I really want to try it. The sweet ones, the dry ones, all of them.
yeah. I'm probably a heathen, but I prefer mine a little bit sweet. I mean, when I think of honey, I think sweet, and that's normally what people think. Oh, all meat is
Mm,
sweet because it's made from honey. But no, if the yeast do their job, then it can be dry as any dry wine you drink.
yeah. I guess you said it's like the earliest drink, and that makes sense because it needs fewer ingredients, and honey would have been readily available, as would yeast, I guess, from byproduct of making bread
hmm
or whatever. That's fascinating.
And yeast is just naturally in the environment. It gets into everything. So
Mm,
the old story is that some caveman was walking around. He stumbled upon a beehive that had water in it that had gotten yeast. And I mean, nobody knows what the true story is, obviously, but that's the earliest conception of how someone may have found mead just naturally fermenting in the environment.
yeah, that's fascinating. All right, we should switch gears and talk about this mobile game now. Declan, I'm going to hand over to you, mate, because I know very little. So, Rebellion, teach me.
I will teach you, young Padawan.
Ah,
Rebellion is a hard game to pin down, to actually say what it is. But essentially, it's a mishmash of other genres into one game. It's gacha, which basically means collecting different characters. There's base building because you build your own brotherhood. There's a story. It's wild, but it's highly addictive. I've been playing it on and off since it first ever came out, but I've just never been able to stick it a long time because there is, how to put it, a steep learning curve because it's mobile. Mobile games aren't designed to just pick up, play, done, go to bed. It's designed to capture your attention, and there is a lot to capture your attention, especially with the turn-based combat. So what that means is you can stealth all the way through, um, but you have abilities. So you could have like 4 turns where you can use assassination moves, but if you use them for assassination move abilities, you might not be able to. You won't be able to use them again, so you have to be very tactful how you use them. There's some areas where you can parkour without using an ability point, but that depends on your character's stats. So yeah, it's weird to try and pin down essentially because it's so much in one little package. But for a free game, in my opinion, it's surprisingly decent. Like, I didn't expect it to be that good, personally.
did you get sucked into buying any of the boosters or anything?
I'm poor, no. No, in all seriousness, when I play a free to play game and I play about 40 a year, I test 40 a year just off my own back, you've you've got to have a way to play it for free without spending money, because a lot of people don't want to spend money on a free to play game, and I know people will be shouting at rooftops that we're sponges, we're just playing games and not paying back to the developers. But you've got to consider that these mobile games are just for your spare time, so you really don't want to invest into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I've I have I'm obviously being a little bit facetious when I say I've never not really played it. I have played it a little bit, a few hours. I think it was last summer on holiday, and I was missing my gaming fix, and I thought, oh, I know what I'll try. Um, I'll download Rebellion on my wife's iPad, and I'll give it a go. And it is kind of fun, but I'll be honest, and this is why I'm coming to you guys for strategy, right? I got stuck because I'd done the first few story missions. I guess it'd be like the chapter one of the story, and it was fine. And you move through the levels, and you, like you say, Declan, you've got different characters with different special abilities, and you've got to pick, um, which character to use for each mission or each part of each mission. Um, and I got to the end of that chapter, and none of my characters had enough power to move on, and I didn't really know how to level up. And I'm going to be honest, I found the game's user interface completely baffling and just not clear what to do next. And I was like, nah, I don't care. I'll read a book. So I turned it off, but I probably gave up too soon. So, what's the secret to sort of progressing your characters through the game?
I'll give you mine and Jason can give his, but
All right.
mine is basically turn your brain off. Like, the
Right.
biggest issue I have is the only way you can level up your characters is by mindlessly rushing missions to do loot, so you can get like resources, and then just play the inventory management mini game, which is spend hours and hours in inventory doing gear, upgrading the characters, rushing more missions to get more characters. And essentially, once you've done all that, in my opinion, it's 3 weeks later, you've forgotten the story and you have to go back and play it. And it is a steep learning curve. And in my opinion, it's I love Jason's opinion in a sec, but it's too high of a steep curve. Like, a steep learning curve shouldn't be the second chapter. It should be at least fourth chapter or the third, because there's only five in this game with 5 regions. So the second region should not be that impossibly hard. Even that I can't get past it, and I've been playing on and off since launch.
All right, Jason, what do you think? What are the tips and the strategies for progressing? Why did I get stuck? Did I just give up too soon?
Yeah, I think Declan pretty much nailed it. The game mechanics are, I think, might be influenced slightly by, the monetization of it. So I think that might be one of the reasons why the learning curve, or the difficulty does go very high when you reach the second region. I noticed that, grinding is really the way to get through that kind of hump, and then you find yourself kind of cruising along again until you reach the next hump, and it's really just pushing through those missions, finding the resources that you need to craft better gear. um, Declan mentioned, using there's the one option to just kind of fast track through the missions really easily. Once you've completed them, and every time you do that, some of your characters become injured. You might have to heal them back up again. So that kind of adds to the grinding of having to, produce potions to heal them back up again and get them going. But I mean, I don't think there really is any other way around it. And I think you kind of nailed it too, James, when you look at really the kind of help and the context that they give you within the game. It's not very easy. I was kind of an early adopter, like Declan. I started. I didn't get in on the beta until 2017. I was in the general release in 2018,
Okay.
and I played probably through the entire major mission set that they had there. So most of Aguilar's, most of Maria's quest all the way to the end. And I reached several places where I had to just grind materials, just grind experience, train those individual assassins up. And what I found was I had to focus on just a core set of about 5 to 6, individual characters that had different skill sets to go through. So I kind of played favorites. I didn't try to, get everybody up or raise everybody up in level to move through. I just really focused on that core set of 5 or 6 individual characters. And that's really what carried me through. But I don't think there's any other way around it. It's either that or you put out massive amounts of money to purchase materials and gold and assets that you can use.
Gotcha. So it's possible to play free to play and progress, but it just takes longer.
Yeah, for sure.
So have you both finished the story?
I did. I finished the story probably in the first couple of months that I started playing it.
Wow.
And then that's where it seems like Declan has been playing it off and on, since its release. I really, once I got through that major set of missions all the way through, the main storyline, I really didn't go back to the game until probably in the last year, and so much has changed. So a lot of my opinions are based on what I originally experienced in the game. But yeah, I finished it probably the first 2 or 3 months.
I actually haven't finished it. I came back last year because I played it on launch and I had literally 6 months of bugs, and the developers would not help me. Um, and the bugs I had, I kid you not, was Jason, in the restroom, you can see the background, which is like the background of the valleys. Mine was just pitch black. There was like no
Really?
background, and I had
Brilliant.
I had one, and I had actually messaged Ubisoft to delete my Facebook account details because I put Hamad on the bank system, so he would generate coins, did some missions, and then I got the quest that says, hey, you need to put someone on your bank. But I already had an assassin on the bank, and it wouldn't let me remove him or put anyone on. So for a whole year, my account was deadlocked because I
Hmm.
couldn't remove the character till they fixed it for me. So when I came back this year, I've started a brand new account. I had to wipe it and start from zero back up, which I was pissed because the last
Ooh.
account I had an Altair and an Ezio.
Oh
No.
So I
no.
had to start from scratch in 2021, back from up. And I've hit that wall in Region 2.
Hmm.
And the problem I have in that wall for Region 2 is I've got Aguilera up, I'm on rank 2 equipment, everyone is powerful, but it's recommended I have a DPS, a support, and an assassin. No matter how many anonymous fragments I waste, my gacha rolls have never pulled a DPS.
Really?
I have never had a
Wait.
DPS.
You got to unpick that sentence for me.
Okay,
Your
so
gacha rolls.
a gacha roll basically means in games like this where you have multiple characters, when you use animus fragments or free fragments to get a new character, they call them gacha rolls
Okay.
because it's just a look of the draw, essentially.
Oh, yes. I see what you mean. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it uses a system like DP, I think you get support, tank, DPS, stealth, and enforcer. Is it? I can't remember all the classes, but I
I had
just
a guy that was good at lock picking, so I don't know whether there's like a tools expert or something as well. But I remember that guy. He wasn't really much use.
no,
If there was a chest.
I I have not got a DPS in the whole year, and it's just hard because I have to run with Aglair and everything because he's eight, no, he's 6,000 power, so he's
Mm.
the only strongest character I've got. But it's just not pushing me through that hump.
Hang on, your Aguilar is 6,000 power.
I believe so.
Damn, I think I finished at about 200 and then I got stuck, which would explain why, because there's quite a gulf between
Yeah,
200 and 6,000.
you've got to like promote them,
Oh,
gear the
man.
system. It's actually
Yeah.
what they created, even though I knock it for a lot of the issues I had, is surprisingly in depth and it's surprisingly strategic as heck. Like, it's one of the best mobile games I've played, even though I have issues with it. And that's saying something. But on the UI point, have you ever found, Jason, that the event system is just confusing as hell?
Yeah, so the event system was something that was added after I stopped my preliminary, run through the game. It was something they added much later from what I remember. Um, you know, what is it? You have the bounties, and then you've got the other story missions that they've added in. And I find it very confusing. I find it confusing to figure out what the goals are. I find it confusing to figure out, how do I gain the individual rewards from those things so that I can unlock, some of the major rewards that are associated with it, which is usually a character or some, resource that you need. I've not found that to be very user friendly at all, and that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't continue playing. I played through the major story missions, all the main story. I got most of my characters, the main ones that I use, up as high as they could go. I crafted the best equipment, the equipment that's designed just for them.
Mm.
Um, Based off of the resources, that's another thing. Early on, the resources, some of them were incredibly hard to get. They were very rare. You might have a 2% chance rushing a mission or going through a mission to get some of those resources. And so I would spend days, sometimes weeks, trying to just get one or two of those really high tier mat materials, to work with to craft something for Aguilar or Maria, and it just wore me down over time. And now it seems like those are really kind of easy to find. I did some mission sequence probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was getting materials that used to take me days and weeks to grind. So they have changed that. That's kind of a nice feature.
I think the materials that I will stay is hard to get, and I don't know if it's just me, is health potions. Like, I can only craft one health potion 8 hours every 8 hours,
Yeah,
and that's level 2. It's like ridiculously difficult. So I can rush 5 missions, and all my assassins will be on like low health, but usually I only have 1 or 2 potions, so I have to turn the game off for an hour or two till they all heal up.
yeah.
It's a clever way to stop people spending too long on a game because you need that break for mental health reasons. You need a break, but it's quite annoying.
It does. It slows you down as well. They have a lot of little artificial things in place to kind of slow your progress down. And I'm not exactly sure what the mindset was for that, why they decided to put those in. I mean, there is somewhat of a competitive, component to it. You can kind of compete against other people, for some of the events that they do and try to get, higher materials and higher rewards from those. And so maybe they're trying to limit, just how far you can get in the game in any given amount of time. But I really don't understand that either. I never had an issue with health potions. I found two different heroes that was their main. You know, so something we haven't explained yet is that certain heroes have bonuses. So there are a couple heroes out there that you can put into the potion crafting room when you're building out your base, and they have the ability to decrease the time of the potions that are being crafted. And so, if you get both of those individuals in the crafting room and they're crafting potions, you can craft pretty high level potions, pretty fast, and you get really good kind of stockpile in your inventory. What I found to be the limiting factor most for me was gold. I got to a point where I couldn't train individuals because I just didn't have any gold, to train them. It's like you need not only the codex books, to train your individuals in the training rooms, but you also have to have gold, to train them at the same time. So you need that double kind of material to get them trained up. And that's probably what stopped me ultimately from playing the game anymore, is that I didn't want to grind for gold because I could only get so much in a day, and I didn't want to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks to get, my character maybe leveled up, 10 additional levels.
So there is over one event I want to touch on quickly, and I'm wondering if James is ready to be confused as heck by this.
Please do. Go right ahead, mate.
So I discovered it recently, and it's why I stopped playing for a month. But after this conversation, I really want to re-download it. But that's another point I'll touch on in a minute. There is animus bounties, I think they're called, and you need desync orbs to take them off your team. However, what I've noticed is you do the mission with 3 assassins, and that locks them in. But you have to do the next mission with 3 more assassins. You can't use the last 3 you've used; they're locked in.
Right.
There is 6 missions in one of the chapters. I think 6 or more. I can't
Six.
remember. So
There's nine, right?
9. So if my maths is correct, 9 times 3 is 27.
Yeah.
You need a maximum of 27 heroes. All of them have to be pretty high power to even complete one of them. I have been playing on and off for a year now since resetting my account. I can't even get more than 3 heroes attached to the Animus bounties
Yeah.
because in a year I've not earned more. I think I earn about one hero every 6 months from just playing casually.
Hmm.
And yet, I'm addicted to the game. I want to come back. That's the rub. Like, we may have these little negatives that slow the progress down, but there's always a rub to keep pulling you back in, or is that just me?
I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I had stopped playing it for a very long time. People were talking about it. It was actually you when you started playing it again, and I started, reading all your tweets about it on Twitter. That is what really kind of got me interested to go back, and that's when I saw all of the changes that they had made. And it does. It kind of brings you back in. And one of the things is I don't remember the story at all. In preparation for this, I actually had to go back and remember the story as it progressed through each of the stages. As non-canon as it is, I went through and kind of refreshed my memory on the events of each stage. But it does for to boil it down for a Metroidvania Assassin's Creed game. It really kind of scratches an itch for me that I can't explain. It's not on the level of something, say, the Chronicles series in Assassin's Creed because you don't have that freedom of movement that you had there or some of the better mechanics that are in there.
Mm.
But I enjoyed it for what it was, for a game that's free to play that I've never spent money on. Um, I've enjoyed a lot of hours on it.
Do you know, that's a very fair comment. It scratches an itch. Why not? If I mean, also if you choose to spend money on it, hey, it's your money. You want to buy the boosters or whatever, that's fair enough too. But you know what? You just made a really good point, Jason, or made me think of a really good point, which is the Chronicles games with their side scrolling structure. They would be ideal for an iOS and Android port, surely.
Hmm.
Why aren't they on mobile? I would definitely play those if they were on the iPad, just casually sort of parkouring through India or China or Russia whilst watching telly. That would be
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, I in thinking about the game kind of in depth, that's what the conclusion that I came to is why didn't they turn that into more Chronicles based type movement through the levels? And the only thing I can think of is, I mean, the game is what 4 years old already. The beta was in 2017. They probably started the process, the development process, a year, 2 years before that. Don't at me, all of you dev people out there. I know nothing about game development, so I could be completely off on that. But maybe it was a limitation of the devices that were out at the time. Maybe the tools they had to work with. I'm not sure.
Good point. Good point. I mean, processing power on the mobile platforms has continued to leap ahead in a way that it doesn't quite anymore on the desktop side. So, yeah, maybe it was the best balance at the time.
I also just want to maybe it was competition because the first Chronicles game came out in 2015, and then India came out in 16 and Russia came out in 16. So I'm wondering if maybe Rebellion wanted to be more than Chronicles, push itself out there, make something worth coming back to because Chronicles is fun to play and there is a lot of replayability, but there's no mobile replayability into that game. And when I think of it, really, how could you translate that rebellion style into that type of replayability, if that makes sense? Because it would have to be constant live service. It would have to be like a live service. It would have to be events, stuff to keep pulling you back, if that makes
Oh, I
sense.
see what you mean. Once you've played the game, I guess, and
Yeah.
earned the achievements or whatever the equivalents are on iOS and Android, yeah, why would you go back? I mean, I suppose I tell you what's smart about the Chronicles games is the scoring system. So what would pull you back if you're inclined that way would be to go for like the Shadow Gold or the is it Brawler Gold if you kill all of the guards in each level. I forget the exact names, but the game tracks your actions and then gives you a score. So if you move through the level and assassinate the target, but don't assassinate anyone else and don't get detected, you get a rating of Shadow Gold, which is kind of what you're aiming for. And apparently, hat tip to Leo K when he did his I mean, it might be more than a year ago now. He did was it Assassin's Creed Stealth tier list on his YouTube channel, and he put I think he put Chronicles China, maybe all three of them, but I definitely remember him talking about Chronicles China as effectively god tier stealth, partly because of how, you know, what's available as mechanics, but also because the game rewards you and you can play the entire game if you're good enough, which I tried it and I wasn't, but if you're good enough, you can play the entire game. You just hit the targets the game gives you, the key name targets, and you can get that shadow gold ranking for the entire story. So it's I think the Chronicles games are interesting because I've played all three, let's say briefly, probably no more than a couple of hours each, and they have got replayability, but the replayability would come from you challenging yourself to want to get a better score or to want to unlock the achievements, you know, connected with getting that better score. But it does feel like they would be very suited to the touch interface and to the mobile, you know, tablets and whatever. Although I have to say, personally, I don't really like gaming on my phone because the screen's too small and I'm too old. But that's just me.
I think as well, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. I think at the same time, as Ubisoft has had issues with Assassin's Creed on mobile. A lot of people don't realize that actually Rebellion isn't the first AC mobile game to appear. There was one in 2015 that cost $1.99 and kind of flopped. And that was Assassin's Creed Identity, if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever heard of it.
Yep.
And that was more of your
No.
traditional Assassin's Creed city parkour combats style game. And that flopped just because there was not a lot to do in it, if I remember correctly. And it was hard. It was hard
Yeah.
for a
I'll take
pun.
you. I'll take you back even farther. Assassin's Creed Pirates was a mobile game
Was
years
that that
ago.
companion game where you could,
Yes.
it had like
No,
the
it was a standalone. It was a standalone game. But it was all ship based kind of combat. It was all based around just pirate life. Not very Assassin's Creed, but it bore the name.
Are you
Um,
telling us it's like an early version of Skull and Bones? Is that what it
yeah,
was?
pretty much. Yeah, yeah, for the mobile. But it was top down like kind of combat type game. One of the things that I think Ubisoft hasn't done very well is they don't market these games very well. Most of them, I find them by accident. Like I'm looking on an old forum and people are like, "Hey, remember this old mobile game that they used to have?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I never heard of it." And I'll go check it out. And that's how I found Pirates years ago, and that's how I found Identity as well. And so I don't really think they push it very much. I think this one is probably the one they push the most, just through Twitter and just through most of their other social media channels. And then, looking back at Chronicles, you just take us back for a second. Looking back at Chronicles and the way you move through Chronicles, the way you move through, the levels. It's like I wonder how they would monetize that. When you look at Rebellion, there's always this push. There's always a way for you to move forward or increase your characters or increase, your materials or your gold or whatever to help you kind of get past that next level. The whole game is designed to stop you at certain points, you know, whether you can overcome them through grinding or not. Um, there's always that chance for you to buy additional materials and buy things from the shop, and I think that's really where Assassin's Creed Rebellion is different from the Chronicle series as a whole, is that it was designed specifically to be free to play, but for there to be monetization so that it can produce revenue, so they can continue to support it,
Mm,
continue to bring
mm.
those events. I don't know how you would do that in Chronicles. I think the platform would be great. Putting it on mobile would be fantastic. I think you're right, James. I think just being able to use the touch screen and move around, I think that would be fantastic. I wonder how they would monetize it. They might have to go back to the old model with which what they did with Identity, where you just pay a flat fee. Maybe you've got cosmetics that you could buy, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, if I mean, when I bought I've owned all of the Chronicles games, and I think I bought them for something like £1 each during a Steam sale or a UB Connect sale, so they're definitely willing to sell them cheap. But if they were to become available, I would definitely play them because I find the sort of the more interactivity, you can control the movement, the parkour, which tools you use, the route through the level, in a way that Rebellion didn't really engage me. Let's put it like that, and I got stuck, which probably is just me being impatient. But so I'm curious about the story then. So it's the Spanish Brotherhood, who we see in the film. Um, is this story? But actually, one of you earlier, might have been Declan, said the story is non-canon. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. It is.
Okay.
It has canon elements. It has the same characters. You've got Torquemada, you've got Ojeda, you've got Maria and Aguilar, you've got Ramirez. The players are all there. The story, some of the chapters, some of the individual levels take place before the events that you see in the movie and the novel. Some of them take place during, and some after, where it really kind of deviates tremendously from the novel and the movie. Is with the introduction of spoilers. I don't know if we need to do hashtag spoilers in here, but with the introduction of the Staff of Eden, um, that plays a big part in the story of going through trying to stop Torquemada and Ojeda from getting their hands on the individual three pieces of the Staff of Eden, not so much the Apple of Eden. That doesn't take place in this the novelization or the movie at all, through Aguilar's story. So that's probably where it deviates the most. And then the culmination of the final chapter, which, James, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it takes place in a location that doesn't is not in the book or the novelization or the movie.
See, I'm weird. I agree with everything Jason says, and everyone said that it's not a canon story, but I actually class it as a canon story at the same time. And it's because it's how it's presented. When you load it up, it actually says loading Animus, and it acts as if it's an Animus project, and acts as if it's like a meta Abstergo project. And I've just always got it in my head that it's canon on the basis that, in a meta sense, this is Abstergo giving you a content just like they did with Black Flag's game system, where they tried to create like video games based off memories. And this is what they've done. This is like the metaverse of, they've took loads of memories from Assassins and they've put it into a game just to see what users would partake of these memories. So yes, it's not canon. Am I weird for saying it's canon on a meta level? Probably.
You're bringing me around.
It's just, it's
I think you've got a very good point. From a historical standpoint, I would not classify it as canon. But if you're looking at it from like the Black Flag Rogue, like you're being presented with, kind of metadata that they're manipulating in a way to produce entertainment for you, or present you a story, I could buy that.
it's like, I don't know if James can remember when he loads it up. It felt like an Animus loading up. Like, even the Rebellion
Yes.
logo has that
Yes.
little Animus Black Flag loading particle effect. So it's like, how is this not canon as a meta project? Like,
Oh, you mean like Liberation is in theory um, an Abstergo entertainment product?
yeah. So it's like, okay,
Gotcha.
the history, the stories, because I know some characters meet Eivor, like Arclair meets Eivor. That's not possible. I agree. But as a metaverse project that you're playing an Abstergo entertainment device, you kind of think, hang on, could this be canon because they're just creating something using memories? But I'm just always fishing.
That's super meta, because you're saying the game, even the device you're playing on, is the canon piece of the story, not so much the content, that's being presented. Yeah, you're bringing me around on that. I'm gonna have to think on that for a bit.
I think it's just because, like, when I first played it, my phone was very slow, so I was stuck watching that loading screen, and it was like Animus loading, and even in the top right corner, it doesn't say a Ubisoft product. It says Animus, and how it always
Yeah.
portrays it. Even when you get to the Assassin's Creed Rebellion press start section, there's no Ubisoft logo there. There's barely any Ubisoft logos on it. It's just like it feels canon that
Because it's like
Abstergo's.
I get you, mate. It's like an
Yeah,
in-universe product.
yeah,
Yeah. Which actually kind of appeals to my nerdy brain. So I like that.
and it just kind of makes me like smile because I'm like, it's what Abstergo would do. How would the human race perceive?
Are you saying microtransactions are exactly what Abstergo would do?
Yeah, and look, honestly, when you read the Assassin's Creed movie novel, you'll understand that there's a line about how they don't need to control people anymore through like science because people are already slaves to ideology already. So people are already slaves to trends, to what's
Comfort.
hip. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it would be meta for Abstergo to abandon the search for a piece of Eden and say, I'm going to control people through the next hip game, through monetization, the next big trend. Heck, we'll use TikTok to overcome the population because it's popular. So I have a weird brain, pretty much. I'm just obsessed to Abstergo kidnapping us through trends.
I mean, you're the one playing the game, buddy. So Abstergo have you in their grasp.
Exactly. They made Nike. Abstergo made Nike. That's why it's popular. Abstergo made Pokemon just to attract people. They want people walking, so they made Pokemon Go. So as you're walking, Abstergo can steal your data from where you're living.
Hmm.
Meta.
We're going really meta now.
Do you know what though? It just made me think of something that I think we've discussed, maybe not in the last episode, but certainly previously. Which is, and I'm thinking back to, it was with the release of Unity. There was a book called the Abstergo Handbook, a physical book I'm talking about,
Hmm.
but it was an in-universe book written by Christy Golden, um, and it is written from the point of view of Abstergo. So there's a whole sort of chapter in there about how bad the assassins are and how their creed is bunk and whatever. And it's fantastic because it's all written in universe. It's got a great history of Abstergo, the company, and the Animus, and so on. And with what you're describing there, and I think maybe we've chatted about this in the Access the Animus Discord recently. We could do with a really good kind of, and we probably won't get it in a game, bearing in mind what we've heard about Mirage is minimal modern day, and the fact that the modern day in future games in Infinity is going to be different, although we don't really know what that means yet. But we kind of need like a full reboot, not a reboot. That's the wrong word. That's going to make that's going to make the wrong assumption. We need like an update on where we are with Abstergo. Who's in charge? What are their projects? What are their goals? What pieces of Eden are they seeking? Because in theory, though, it's the actions of Abstergo that drive what the assassins are trying to do. And we haven't had any of that really since that, I suppose, Syndicate, when we had Alvaro Grammatica and the Phoenix Project. And then, of course, that Juno storyline was finished off in a comic. But really, the Layla Hassan games have barely touched on, apart from we know that Layla was formerly employed by Abstergo. We don't really know what they're up to, what their goals are. And I wish we had that, because that structure and that story kind of should frame and drive all of the rest of the plot, who's doing what, where, and why. And I love the fact that Rebellion could be part of it. We've got because again, in universe there are in Abstergo have got, is it Helix devices in people's homes? They've got the Brahman VR headset, which people use to play Abstergo entertainment products. So there's loads of good stuff in there, and I'd love it if Rebellion was also kind of an in-universe game as well. That's maybe tracking people's actions or just earning cash for Abstergo, to fund their Animus project or something. Anyway, yeah, just a thought I had.
Well,
I was going to mention something else. So you were both from this conversation about Rebellion. You mentioned a couple of games or mobile games I'd not heard of, Pirates, and I forget the other one, but this prompted a memory. So I was watching a Access the Animus live stream, just before Christmas, I think it was, and we were doing some trivia. They were Marco and Sari had set some very hard trivia questions, and some of them had come from initiates, which was not. I guess it wasn't a mobile app. It was a website which is long been shut down. And I did suggest to Marco, and I believe it may be on his list of videos, but probably for some time in the future, that for newer fans like me who've never seen Initiates, I hadn't heard of this Pirates sort of mobile app. It would be great to have sort of as best as we can reconstruct, because a lot of these apps just aren't available, don't work anymore. Um, just a sort of a revisit. What were these apps? What kind of content did they have? Were they playable, or were they kind of ARG style? Um, so I do look forward to that maybe in the future, maybe in conjunction with the wiki people who do a lot to try and preserve the content of these different apps and stories and games that are no longer functional. It's a shame, really, how much stuff has been made, because Unity had a companion app, as you said. Black Flag did. There was the Facebook game, which I forget, was that Project Legacy or was that something else? There have been a number of different companion apps and standalone games that are no longer accessible, because the mobile operating systems get updated and the games don't, and eventually they stop working. So there's kind of a digital rot that takes place unless developers are willing to maintain these things in the long term. So I do look forward in the future, maybe to Access the Animus bringing their laser eye on some of these older products, and just giving us little glimpses as to what we miss now, as newer fans. Go on,
So,
Declan.
I kind of have a question for the both of you. So, Assassin's Creed Rebellion is proven a hit on mobile devices. Do you think Ubisoft should attempt at porting the game to consoles and PC, since a lot of games on mobile are ported to PC naturally, and a lot of mobile games like Genshin Impact, which is one of the most popular open world RPGs, free to play RPGs, is on console and mobile. Do you really think if they try to port it, it may boost marketing and probably revenue for the company?
I think so. And I'll tell you what kind of really drives me in that direction. I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with the game Fallout Shelter, but basically it's a mobile game that was ported to console and PC, and you know your progress is shared between the two platforms or whatever platform you play on. And that was nothing but an underground base building, like a sim game where you're building out, your Fallout shelter with the different rooms. You've got the different individuals, and it's very similar to kind of the base building portion of, Assassin's Creed Rebellion. Without the missions, you didn't really have missions that you could go on. It's just all about the base building and producing resources and things like that. So it's kind of like the Sim Tower games back in the day and things like that. But I mean, I readily played that on mobile. I played it on, played it on my Xbox. Um, I don't see why they couldn't do the same thing with Rebellion. I mean, it would be, the aspect is right. It would be nice to see on a screen. I think I might actually start playing it again if it was on Xbox, because I would feel like
Yeah,
there's a little more oomph behind it if I played it that way.
you know that question is really interesting, and I can't draw a direct comparison, but the nearest I can think of is a game that I've only started playing in the last week, and it's kind of addictive. And bought it through Steam, so I'm playing it on my PC, which is Vampire Survivors, which is a big hit. I'm a year late to the party, but whatever. Um, and it's a rogue light or rogue like. There is a difference, but anyway, it's a very simple kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, like 80s or 90s style graphics. You will always die at the end. You cannot beat the game, but you gradually build up your character strength, and often your run through the different levels or dungeons, I guess, probably will take 10 to 50 minutes. It's up to 30 minutes, and then you are killed off anyway. But it's incredibly addictive. But what I like about it is, well, first of all, it's a one-off cost, and there's no microtransactions. It's just on how much time you want to put into it. But if you just want to play for 15 minutes and mess around, you can. And I feel like Rebellion could fill that same gap where you don't want to set off on a massive story-based game, or you just want to maybe, you know, alt tab into Steam, start the game, play a couple of levels for 10 minutes, and then go and do something else. And it would definitely fill that kind of casual niche that, although I love all of the other games, the main games in the franchise, you need to sit down and kind of pay attention and really get into the story to absorb yourself, which you don't need to do with Rebellion. So it is surprising that it's still mobile only, because like you said, Declan, there are plenty of other games out there that are multi-platform and very profitable. Genshin Impact is hugely profitable. They must have done a cost benefit analysis and decided it's not worth it. But yeah, it's a shame, because it would be something that would be worth just leaving installed and just dipping into when you felt like it. Or you do a couple of missions and you go and play a main game. Then you come back a few hours later and do a couple of missions or whatever. So I would be interested in it if it was available on PC, because I don't have my own, mobile device other than my phone. I'm not going to play it on my phone because screen's too small. That's on me. That's not that's not a developer criticism. But yeah, if it was available on PC, I would think that would be much more compelling.
See, this is where things are going to get tricky because they can port it natively to PC. And I'm with Jason. I play Fallout Shelter on Xbox. It's brilliant. It's nice little fun. And I think with console having quick resume on Xbox, so you can jump in and out. Consoles you can take pretty much anywhere. Porting it to consoles mainly reduces that gap of system requirements on mobiles, which is a very hard gap for people to overcome, pricing and otherwise. Now, the complication with PC and why I'm asking if it should be ported to PC is Google Play is currently in the process of porting Google Play itself into PC. So soon your PC will have integrated mobile games from the Google Play Store, not through emulation or anything. It's going to be Google Play on your PC, but it's only bringing certain games. So are Ubisoft willing to port it to their own Ubisoft store, or will they jump on Google Play's hype train and have it as one of the 40 launch games for Google Play PC? And really, I think marketing wise, you should probably generate more income if you did, because Xbox players and console players can spend up to about 10 hours playing console games or longer. You generate more money off them, especially on a wider screen, than you probably would on someone mobile who plays it 20 minutes for work. So it's weird, but I wonder if they're saving that for Jade. Will Jade be that
Ah,
mobile game which is going to do a Genshin Impact route, open world RPG, gacha elements from my predictions, that's ported to PC and mobile and skip console because it is a mobile game, or they're going to be a-holes and do console exclusivity. Hey, I don't care what anyone says. If Ubisoft ever tries to put an Assassin's Creed free game on console exclusivity, I will complain no matter the platform. Plus, Assassin's Creed Rebellion on Nintendo Switch, I have a Switch. I
Switch
could
is
go
another
to
great point, mate. Another great platform for these, the Chronicles games, Rebellion.
yes,
For sure.
Why not?
Chronicles. Oh, Chronicles game on Switch would be amazing.
It would. It
Oh,
would.
now I want them. I'm
You
gonna.
both make some really good points there. I mean, James, you're right. I mean, maybe we missed the boat on that. Maybe if they had released it at the time on two different systems, it would have been profitable. Maybe so many people have played it on mobile now they wouldn't go back to it. I'm not sure.
Mm.
And then Declan, I think you're exactly right. What would the path forward be through their own port, which would probably cost more money to even do, which is probably out of the question with the state of Ubisoft right now? Or would they go with this rollout of Google Play natively within Windows, which I'd completely forgotten about? That's a very good point. I think they'd be smartest if they went that direction. Probably the easiest path to getting it into the hands of more people.
So you can get Google Play now natively on Windows, can you?
I think it's coming, right? It's not out yet,
Okay.
Declan.
Yes, so this is going to show how sad I am for mobile games. I'm actually signed up to the beta because I'm sad. And so far, it's only in America. Let me just pull the beta thread that I've got up because I like it. The beta at the moment is Australia, Brazil, Canada, Hong Kong, Indonesia, South Korea, Malaysia, Mexico, Philippines, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, and the United States.
Okay.
So, but literally, the coolest thing is it's Android mobile games now available on PC. Like, there's Just Dance Now, Beast and Puzzles, Lost Shelter, proper Blade Idol. These are like proper mobile games that we sit on our phones, and they're natively, so you can use mouse and keyboard, which would probably improve
Hmm.
Rebellion a lot, in my opinion. There's sync progression, so if you play it on mobile, it'll sync to your PC or your laptop. How that's not a win for Rebellion, I don't know. I'm
Very
just
interesting.
just saying, Ubisoft. There's a lot of wins here, but in the list of games they've released, I have not seen any Assassin's Creed games like Rebellion. It's just typical mobile games, but it could go up there. There is a lot of games coming, and I really think it could find a home on Google Play if they so wished it, and it may be a cheaper option.
Will apps have to be specifically updated or rewritten to run in this version of Google Play for Windows, or
Good question.
will any game that currently works is this Google Play Windows app? Is it like is it going to offer like an abstraction layer so any Android app can just run anyway? So there's effectively no effort required by the application developers to make it run. That would be interesting to find out.
I have the answer, sort of. In the FAQ, Google Plays does specifically state that it will let you browse, download, and play keyword selected mobile games
Okay.
on Windows desktop laptop. Besides, so you'll have keyboard, mouse, seamless sync, blah blah blah, and it won't be available for Mac at the moment. So it seems that it is pretty much selected, and that's probably what games are going to transition well, essentially. But I do believe Windows 11 is making that integration possible, anyways. That was the big key feature of Windows 11 is allowing you to. Because have you guys ever heard of BlueStacks?
Yes.
Yes. So BlueStacks does show how possible it is for games to run on PC or mobile because that's an emulation. It
Hmm.
runs seamlessly. I just think Google just needs to work out the logistics and cost side. I think that's what they're struggling with because PC, as we all know, is a very free community. It's free
Indeed.
online, and when you
I
bring,
wonder if that's what discourages. Obviously, consoles are still closed platforms as well. Well, within reason. I know anything can be hacked, but PC is the most open platform, and I wonder if that would discourage Ubisoft from putting Rebellion on PC because then people are going to hack open files. They're going to reset various internal game counters so they don't have to buy the boosters. All this stuff becomes possible. Um, so maybe that alone is enough to mean that it would never come to PC. But console seems interesting to me.
plus, not to be rude, PC has more cheaters than any other platform.
How dare
No,
you? You're right. Absolutely right.
because it's so easy to sideload third applications onto your computer.
mm,
It's, it's.
mm.
I'm not trying to make a knock at PC players. So I apologize. It comes across that way. It's
Mate,
just,
I'm winding you up. It's fine.
and I play crossplay games, and with crossplay, there's a lot of people who use bots or aim stuff
Yeah.
on PC because you can't sideload it onto computers. So you are right. There is that level of touch and go with Ubisoft that do they really want to risk that avenue of extra layer of anti-security that you need to put onto stuff these days.
Mm, mm.
I wonder if they would even really care about that. And the reason I say that is because are do you think that would really be their target audience anyway? Would any of those individuals that would hack it ever spend money on it anyway? I mean, probably not.
True.
Probably going to be the users like you and I who never pirate anything ever or have ever in our lives, and spend
Nope.
money on it, play
I
play it
didn't
for
have a.
free.
I didn't use Napster back in the
Yeah,
day.
no, no, LimeWire, Napster, never
Hell
involved.
no.
Yeah, but you make some really good points. I have another question for you, Declan. I'm sorry to go back to the Google Play thing again, but is it are these games locally installed? When I think of when they give you like a select group, I start thinking about cloud, like Xbox Cloud. Are they running these from the cloud or are they locally installed?
Good point.
From what I can understand, it's it's pretty much from what I've read in the different forums. It's going to be running natively on your computer. It's just like a Steam store. It's essentially just like what it does on your phone. Anyways, it will just download to the computer because
Got it.
some of the system requirements are very heavy. Windows 10, you need a solid state drive. You need a gaming class GPU, 8 logical cores of CPU, 8 gig of RAM, 20 gig available of storage space.
Oh wow.
Yeah, hardware virtualization must be turned on, compatible with TV's PC device and
Wait,
configuration.
hardware virtualization must be turned on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
Interesting. So it's more
it's
like
it
the
is.
hypervisor then.
it's
Hmm.
heavy. It pretty much that's the minimum requirements.
Okay.
But the fact that it's asking for a solid state drive really just shows that you are looking at something that's going to be pretty much on your computer all the time. It's not
Mm,
going to be streamed, so it's going to be very heavy intense. But it seems it's running through Windows, so yeah, it's going to be heavy. It's interesting to see how it works.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't even. I'm not even going to try it now. I know all those stats.
I've got a question for you then, guys. So actually, this will be for Jason because he finished the main story. Declan, you wimped out, my friend, like me. Um, just while you were talking earlier, Jason, I went on to one of my favorite websites, howlongtobeat.com,
Hmm.
which for people that don't know it is a pretty simple website where you search for the game you're playing and it will give you various estimates of how long it takes to complete the game. And they have different categories like main story only, completionist, um, and they're different play styles. So people that want to rush the game obviously will have the shortest time, and there's another category I think for like relaxed play style and so on. And I find that quite useful to get an idea of whether I fancy starting a longer game or a shorter game. And what's interesting is Rebellion is listed, but there's only ever been one time submitted for it, and that time must be wrong because it says an hour and a half. So what I'm curious, Jason, is how long did it take you? I appreciate the game has changed a lot over the last 4 years, but when you started playing, how long did it take you to complete the main story?
It definitely wasn't an hour and a half. I
It's a
don't know
very
where
short
that
game.
stat comes from. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's someone who's spent a lot of money on it. I've already stated I didn't spend any money on it. I
Mm,
would say, and I played it when I first played it. I was really hooked. I mean, I'm all in on all things Assassin's Creed, so I was very hooked on it to begin with. I played it every single day. I played it every chance I got. At the time, I ran it in decks. I would play it on my PC, everything. I'd say it took me at least, especially thinking about the areas where it gets very grindy, where you really have to push forward, because you get stuck. I say it took me at least a month and a half, at a minimum to get through the main story. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I cannot imagine it would be less than that.
yeah. So I mean, obviously not solidly 24 hours a day, maybe what, an hour a day.
Correct. Yeah.
It's still not as much as I would have thought, actually. So that's interesting as well. Um, I wonder what it would be like nowadays for someone starting a new account and just going through the story, and whether those roadblocks exist in the same way, whether you can
Mm.
sort of burn through the story if you want to. Once you finish the story, what else is there to do? I guess it's leveling up characters, doing the rift missions, and other stuff? Because or is there new story content added periodically?
I mean, there wasn't in the beginning, and that was one of the major factors of me not playing anymore. Was just the replayability for me. I don't enjoy playing the same levels over and over again. If I feel like I've already mastered them, which is the reason why I really don't enjoy roguelite content at all from games. But there weren't these bounty missions, there weren't these other kind of extended campaigns that they've been adding on with like Eivor and several of the other ones. They did some events here and there. They did a really cool event with Erudito at one point, which was kind of nice. Kind of special events throughout the time that I was playing. But really, when you got to the end, there wasn't much more to do. And so it was nice to kind of come back to the game after a really long break and see that they've added some additional content. As confusing as it is at times.
Yeah, the UI is baffling. I will say that. Um, what about you, Declan? Are you convinced to go back to it and dive back into it, into the story?
I'm always excited to dive back into it. I'll dive into it for a week, get stressed, uninstall it, come back in a month. I think the game's great. I don't mean to knock it. It is great. I just can't be bothered waiting in menus. That's just it. I can't be bothered waiting for my characters to like level up to do the next mission because it took me a whole month to get Aguilera to just enough power to beat the stage. But all my other characters are just still not at his level yet because I focused on
Ah,
him.
right.
And I can't complete anything until I get all of them up. And I just end up rushing 5 a day, turn the game off, rush again the next day, and then just rinse repeat. But it's addictive. I can't believe I keep repeating the word. It's addictive.
I can understand that. Like I said, I'm addicted to Vampire Survivors. I never thought I'd be addicted to a game like that, but it's really really good fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun one, and then you're
Mm.
right. The drop in, drop out, ability on that is fantastic,
Mm,
especially for people that are working full time and they have families. You get very little time to play.
absolutely, absolutely. So what else can we say? I'll tell you one thing that you mentioned. I think Declan a few minutes ago was Jade, the upcoming new mobile game. Um, did either of you see the game footage?
I did have to confess.
I I did too. I sought it out
Yeah,
because I wanted to see it, and
I did
I have
too
to say, it looked
because
really good.
yeah,
Just
and
just the visuals. I don't know about gameplay and all that yet, but it looked great.
yeah. Here's my take on that. I'm against spoilers just like the next person, but that to me was more of a gameplay reveal, even if it is early, like stages. But wow, man, was I blown away.
Mm,
I mean, I was so blown away by the fact that it looks like Origins or
it does.
Odyssey
It does.
on mobile, and I cannot wait to patch an HDMI into my phone and play that on the big screen like a
Oh,
AAA title,
good
because that's
point.
what I'm going to do. I'm going to play that on a big screen. There's no way I'm playing that on mobile.
Go on, Declan, mate.
So there is some interesting controversy about Assassin's Creed Jade that you guys may not know.
Go on.
Dun 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 dun. So I'm trying to find where this link is and it's gone. So a lot of us have been talking about it, and I've avoided it like the plague because I don't want to be spoiled. But however, we actually started to think in a little group of friends that this was a deliberate reveal by Ubisoft, not an
Oh,
actual
it
leak.
feels very deliberate.
Because there is actually a Facebook page for the game already, an unofficial Facebook page with an actual different code name. It's not Jade, it's got a different code name. I'm trying to find the link I had. No, it's called Codename Explore. So this whole thing has a Facebook page called Codename Explore, which when you look on the thing, it's literally says the alpha test for Jade, and it has all the same combat systems. It is basically it looks like the official Assassin's Creed Jade Facebook page, but the weird thing is it's not promoted by Ubisoft, and there is a Google Doc to apply for the alpha test. So it's like an unofficial thing, but it's weird.
The game is
Jason?
not being developed by. Sorry, just say one quick thing. Isn't the game being developed by Tencent?
Yeah, but in partnership with Ubisoft. So it's a bit weird.
Yeah. All right. Over to you, Jason, mate.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that page is legitimate. It just doesn't have the hallmarks of any other alpha test application or anything that Ubisoft does. I've never known them to use a Google Doc for something like that. They have their own internal kind of
Yeah.
system that they use, and it's very suspicious to me that the page was built about 2 days after that release happened, and so that footage is readily available online, easily grabbable, easily rebranded into this discovery or whatever they're calling it. I saw that page. It was sent to me by a friend, and I looked at it, and I immediately got the phishing vibes from it. That they were trying to gather information through that Google Doc. I could be wrong. I'm not perfect, obviously, but I really feel like it's a phishing attempt. But I'd be interested to see what other people's opinions on it are. I've not been part of that discussion online, but it would be interesting to see.
See, it looks fishy, but it's just weird because people found this leak through the Facebook page first, apparently. So the first leak was from this Facebook post. That was the rumor, and it actually says Codename Explorer is a AAA action open world RPG as a hero in ancient China. You'll show off your extraordinary battles and combat with seriously parkouring through the cities of ancient China. But that doesn't sound right. But it's weird because the Apple test flight, because I actually googled Codename Explorer, actually does say appletestflight.apple.com, join the Codename Explore beta test flight /Apple. So it's odd, very odd, because it looks fishy. Exactly, it looks like a scam in my opinion. But the test flight is coming back as Codename Explore.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So a lot of us, some assume it could be a rip-off, but the way it looks and the way it handles, you couldn't rip that off because of the way it is.
If it's genuinely Apple's test flight program, that is their, I don't know what you call it, beta test or dev test system, I think.
Yeah,
so that feels more correct.
What gets me though is that when I did my initial investigation, I know I sound like a private investigator, but when I did my initial investigation of that page, the very first post on the page was 2 days after I had already seen the leak of the video, and so that's what threw me. I was like, that's kind of odd. So it's odd that people may have found that video through that page, but I don't think it was before the initial quote leak happened. And then also, if that person had access to Apple, and they could potentially rebrand it using that as well to further kind of dupe people, or it's completely legitimate. I mean, I don't know. Now you've got
It's
me thinking.
legitimate, but it just looks really shonky.
Really shady. It does. And
Exactly,
it's a really poorly put together page as well, which is the other thing.
Yeah, it's dodgy, but it had a lot of our eyebrows up because, interestingly, I have this screenshot to prove it. People don't believe me that on mobile it does say, Apple test flight, join Explore, blah blah blah. But when you type code name Explore in Google now, there is no Apple test flight in that name. So there was one, and I've got proof of it in screenshots to show that I'm not lying, but it doesn't exist now. So this is weird.
It's Abstergo, man. I'm going back to what we were talking about earlier.
Definitely Abstergo.
It's Abstergo.
It's weird. It's like a meta thing, but anyways, in my opinion, Jade's gonna suffer anyways.
Why would Jade suffer?
Yeah, why would it?
Because I don't know how to word it about being a douche.
Well,
But
how about you word it, and then we'll edit it out if you sound bad, and we'll edit in a really slick clip of you sounding cool.
There we go.
perfect. So the reason why I think it's going to suffer is it's not going into the mobile market. It's like us walking into a fight with Mike Tyson. We're not going to come out unscathed. This is not going into the into the mobile market on its own. It's got to contend with Genshin Impact, which is probably one of the best open world RPGs.
Hmm.
On top of that, it's got to contend with the next second best open world RPG, Tower of Fantasy. It's then got to compete with any other mobile game that's popular, like Clash of Clans. It needs a hook or a drive to push it forward, but it also needs to house monetization where it's fair. It will also need to house content which is updated regularly. If it is a single player open world RPG, which will then contend with Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy, they handle monetization slightly better because it's weapons that are done through gacha through roles. So instead of characters, you get weapons, and but a lot of the content is free. You can play the entire game for free. But they've got the upper hand that they're on PC and console. Well, Genshin Impact is PS5 and Switch exclusive, but they've got that player base down. If Jade drops and it's just mobile only with a crap monetization system, it will sink faster than anything, in my opinion. And
There's
bearing in mind, I test 40 mobile games a year for fun.
yeah. I can't argue with your experience because I don't really play any mobile games at all. But I'll have a few thoughts, which is we don't know yet whether Jade will follow Rebellion's structure of sure it's this beautiful big open world, which God knows how they're doing that on a mobile device. Maybe it's using that Ubisoft Scalar technology they talked about in a press release last year. But anyway, is it a big open world? But you can only move your character so many kilometers per day, or you can buy a booster to unlock the next story earlier, whatever. We don't know that yet. Or is it a fixed price? It's quite an expensive game. Let's say it's 20 quid. But then you've got a full open mobile Assassin's Creed RPG, and you just go and play. Plus, cosmetics and all that rubbish. We don't know yet what structure it'll take, but I think it's fair to say that this is a game. Of course, it'll be available for players everywhere in the world, but this is a game that's being considered particularly for the Chinese market. And there's what 1.5, 2 billion potential gamers. Okay, maybe not the very elderly and the very young, but the market of potential gamers in China is bigger than Europe, all of Europe and all of North America combined, and all of South America combined. They've only got to hit 1% of that audience, and they've got the biggest selling Assassin's Creed game of all time. Who knows? Who knows? I suppose it'll depend on price, but I would like to, based on what I've seen, I would like to try it, just to try it, and whether it'll be free to play plus boosters or unlocks, I guess we don't know. But it certainly looked fantastic.
My other issue is, and yes, I just may be a nitpicky bugger. I'm just worried that it's going to be like Genshin Impact, where people can't play it on their phones because it's 16 gigabyte in size. Like my mobile phone without an SSD card is 50 gigabyte. I've used 29 gigabyte at the moment. 18 of that is my phone's bloat and just standard phone stuff. And my games and apps is only about 10. So adding a 16 gigabyte game on top of that is near enough running my phone at maximum.
Yeah.
So it's the whole issue with when you say, hey, yeah, I'm doing an open world Assassin's Creed AAA mobile game, you've got to worry about the size. Can people's phone handle it? These aren't phones, again, more expensive, and people can't catch up with them. So if you're going to drop a meaty AAA AC game off to the free to play market, you need backup. you need PC, you need console ports in the pipeline, because you'll realize that soon the Western market, especially, may not be able to afford this next gen hardcore phone that it's aimed for, and it will suffer for that. Rebellion's best because it was created in a time when mobile phones were weakest. So now,
Good
as
point.
phones get stronger, you'll never have an issue with Rebellion because your phone's still going to meet its basic system requirements. Whereas now, um, somebody correct me wrong if they know this, but 2019 forced every Google Play game to run at 64-bit instead of 32 and 64-bit.
Ah, okay.
And that, at that point in time, and I remember this correctly, had an issue where a lot of the phones marketed in that year and the year after were 32-bit. So cheap phones that people could afford could not run basic Google Play apps because Google Play moved to 64-bit instead of 32. And that's still an issue going on to this date, that some phones still run at 32-bit when most apps now require 64-bit.
There's been a similar transition in the Apple world. Again, I don't remember how many years ago now, but yeah, all of their phones have been, hardware's been 64-bit for some time. I guess the difference is Apple has got full control over the hardware and the operating system, so they can probably enforce and move their ecosystem much more quickly and completely to the newer architecture. I don't know whether you can still run older 32-bit apps, but I'm assuming, Jade, modern application or modern game under development right now, is going to be native 64-bit. And are there really still phones being made with 32-bit processors? I guess if there are, they're not going to have the power to run the game anyway.
I think there is still 32-bit because it's the mobile market at the moment is one of those where it's dominated by the big Samsungs, Google phones, Apples, and the littler markets are still trying to produce cheap phones to rival them for people who are struggling with cash, because Samsung Galaxy is like £500. You might as well buy a console for that much. But
That's a fair point.
30,
Very good point.
32-bit phones are still in fashion. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
and I only know this because I'm weird. No, essentially, I rely on mobile game phone apps more than console, just because sometimes I can't play consoles. So, like on a podcast night, I don't want to put my Xbox on before I record a podcast, so I'll sit on my phone and play a game for an hour, and
No, that's fair enough.
I want to play Jade. And if they release Jade and my phone can't handle it, I will have a 2-year-old tantrum.
System requirements are going to be interesting.
Beefy.
You make a really good point about Rebellion. I'm guessing just because of its age and because of you touched or you click to move, and you're not sort of doing, what's the right word, you're not doing live 3D rendering of worlds and assets. It's probably relatively light in terms of its resources, which gives it good what's the right word, like you said, it allows it to run on a wider variety of hardware, which is good for putting it potentially in the hands of more people. So it must be a tough developer choice. Sure, we can make these very attractive games for mobile devices, very interactive games, but the downside is, anyone with a phone older than a year or 2 years can't play them. So it must be quite a tough choice. Do you bring it to the widest market, or do you go all in on the visual and the gameplay style you want? So yeah.
I don't know how accurate this information is, but I do remember reading an article not too long ago about the beta of Assassin's Creed Jade, and it was something like minimum iPhone 11, and I think storage was somewhere like between 12 and 15 gigabytes. So, yeah, that's a really good point. If they're aiming for, well, let's look at the development time. When do we think this thing will release? Probably not this year, right? Maybe next year. Maybe
If those videos were an alpha and it was maybe at the end of this year,
yeah, maybe.
but So hard to know, isn't it? Maybe it was a beta, and actually
It might have
they're
been.
closer to release because I think it's Tencent they've been working on it, but I don't know for certain. I'll be honest, I haven't followed it that closely, but the other teams at Ubisoft are working on various projects. Red, Mirage,
Mhm.
I forget the other one, Hexe, and so on. They're busy. Um, if it's being done by an external partner, they're not constrained by the same sort of workforce limitations, and maybe it's making fast progress. Who knows? It depends when they started development, I suppose. Did they
Yeah.
start last year? And what we saw in that video was like really early alpha test stuff of just like one mission, or was that like a finished piece of work that's just needs the bugs fixing? It's who knows.
I mean, there's several approaches they could take there. One of them is, I mean, we were talking about Diablo Immortal earlier.
Mm,
Diablo Immortal has the ability where you can choose what you download and what you don't download, texture packs, things like that. I think the overall game is something around 3.5 gigs total. And the overland portions of it are pretty large, but we're not talking about, you know, fully rotating 3D landscapes, which is what I think I saw in, that leaked footage of
yeah.
Jade. But I mean, they could do that. They could, maybe you only download the textures for one area that you're going to be in, or maybe they cordon off areas and you can't go to the next area until you download you know, that data. That's a few things that they could do to kind of mitigate that, I think.
Mm,
But if I
mm.
know Ubisoft, they're just going to slam it out there onto the market. And if you can play it, you can play it. And if you can't, you can't.
Ah, dear. Yes. Oh, Ubisoft.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
We
have
should
some
go on,
war
Declan.
stories from Rebellion, how Rebellion handled launch
Mm,
and bugs all through Facebook DMs. That was rough. They ignored me a lot when I sent them in bug fixes for Rebellion. They blanked me, damn Ubisoft. Oh, and I know this is off Rebellion topic, but there is another Ubisoft game. I won't name names because I don't want to get any Ubisoft people in trouble or to get any backlash myself. I complained that the game was loading permanent black screen and I couldn't fix it. I tried clearing cache, and Ubisoft's help advice was get a new phone.
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
ouch, Ubisoft. And again, it was just a mobile company, so I'm not saying anything about Ubisoft the business, but just the way that one mobile helpline dealt with that one game, I was like, ouch, rude. But yeah,
They're going to have to be very clear on their system requirements.
yeah, they're gonna have to be kinder when people complain that it's bugged.
Oh, indeed.
Don't
Indeed.
tell people to just go buy a phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's come back to Rebellion, well, not the OG mobile game, because there's been many, but in fact, I've just found the just looking at the wiki now. Um, I don't know whether you'd count the DS as a mobile device. I guess you could. So Altai's Chronicles, Bloodlines, Discovery, Legacy. There's another one here called Recollection, which I've never heard of. Liberation, that wasn't a mobile game. Pirates, Memories, Chronicles, Identity, Rebellion, Freerunners, Nexus. I'm going to be honest, I think I've only heard of 5 out of this list of spin off games.
Mhm.
Oh, we forgot about the Netflix mobile game that's coming as well. What the heck? Yeah, anyway, let's see what that's going to be. Um, there's so much stuff coming, it's insane. Yeah. Right, Rebellion. I was going to ask you guys a question about Rebellion and I've forgotten where I was going with it. Damn it. Never mind. Declan, rescue me, mate.
Rescue. Did you know there is a problem with Netflix mobile Assassin's Creed game?
No.
Okay, so I actually tested this last week because I'm an umpty. You can't play it unless you have a Netflix account.
That's the point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but right, hear me out. Do not put a game on the Google Play Store as a free-to-play game to allow people to download it, and then when people get to play the game, it says, "Hi, can you now buy Netflix?"
It's
That's
not
not
out yet,
fair.
is it?
No, but I mean, that's all Netflix games do. Netflix has its own Google Play page where you could download Google Play game Netflix games onto your
Ah,
phone, but as soon as you load the game, it then says, "Hi, can you buy Netflix now?" And it's like, I thought you were integrated into the app, but you're not. You're on Google Play. So,
oh, I thought it was going to be in, and I know nothing. I don't really follow like entertainment technology, but I assumed it was going to be integrated into the Netflix app.
uh,
But actually, it's
That's what I
just through
thought.
Google Play.
yeah.
Yeah.
So right now on Google Play, you can download Netflix Puyo and P, Stranger Things 1984, Bowling Ballers, Netflix Moonlighter, Things 3 the game. This is all on Google Play. Nailed It Bacon Bash, Stranger Things, Puzzle Tales. But as soon as you download that, you are then asked to buy Netflix. So
Okay.
the thing is, people are going to find that game on the store, and I'm kind of annoyed that Puzzle Tales never used to be a Netflix thing. That used to be free to play because I had it. But anyways, so people are going to find it marketed on Google Play. They're going to download it, and then they're going to be told to buy Netflix. And
Mm,
since Netflix is now shutting down its password sharing system, you you've got this whole system now where a lot of people won't be able to play it because either they don't have the money for a Netflix account, that's
Yep.
fair, and if they try and share the account to their brother, they'll get fined. And the UK has said it's actually a criminal offence to share passwords now. So,
How can they not realize that that is going to start a massive online campaign of complaining? And I mean, they're going to get torn apart.
well, they already are because 3 years ago on Valentine's Day, Netflix did put a post saying, "Love is sharing your Netflix password."
Right. I just mean the overall like baiting you with the free game and then
yeah.
requiring you to have a Netflix,
Yeah.
subscription to play it. That seems like it's very reminiscent of the old days of Xbox Live, where if you had the silver account which was free, you couldn't play anything online with your friends. You had to have the gold account. And they eventually got rid of that. There was a lot of complaining and a lot of people just, didn't understand that, you know, that feature and how it worked. And so they originally got rid of that, especially as they moved on to Game Pass. But how are they? How can they not look into their crystal ball and just realize they are going to get torn apart on social media for that? Especially if there's like a rabid fan base for whatever game it is that you know people are trying to play. That's crazy.
And they
There's,
don't actually even tell you this on the Google Play Store. Sorry, James.
no, you're right, mate. You're right. I
You
was just going to say, there's a real fragmentation issue coming where if you're a fan of the series and you want to consume all of the content, you are going to have to do so on many different platforms, each with their own subscription fee, um, which, I'm going to be honest, sucks. Um, the last thing we need is to have an Assassin's Creed game buried inside a Netflix wrapper.
Hmm.
I think it's madness. I'm assuming large sacks of cash changed hands to make it happen, from Netflix to Ubisoft. But I got to be honest, right now, I think it stinks.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Um, so anyway, there's my little rant over. Sorry, Declan.
Oh, it's okay. It's one of my mobile rants because, again, I love mobile games. I'm not gonna lie, but I want to play this Assassin's Creed Netflix game. I think it would be fun because Netflix games look fun, but I don't have Netflix. I don't really particularly want to buy Netflix,
Yeah,
so I'm not going
yeah.
to buy a Netflix subscription just for a game. And the annoying thing is, these games are probably going to be better than anything Ubisoft pushes out in the sense, before anyone gets angry at me, that Netflix games never have microtransactions.
Hmm.
They're just because,
Apart from the actual monthly subscription
yeah,
fee, but yes,
Right.
I see your point there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
because they're done through Netflix subscription, there's enough revenue to make these games with no microtransactions. So it's gonna be, you'll get an Assassin's Creed experience, even if it's a small puzzle game or a small idle game, but there'll be no monetization to it. So it'll be a full package, and that'll be fantastic for consumers. but it's locked behind Netflix, and that's going to really drag it down.
I mean, it feels like all entertainment is headed in that direction. You know, I made a joke on Twitter, and as most of my jokes are not very funny, but you know, I made a joke several years ago that at some point somebody should take all of these different subscription services like Discovery Plus and Apple TV and you know all these different subscription services. Everybody's got their own Plus version now. You know,
Hmm.
MGM Plus and HBO Plus, and they should bundle them into one package and just call it cable TV.
Oh yes,
Because
yes.
that's what we've done. We've gone from everything being sold in a giant package, you pay for that subscription, to being distributed onto all these individual little platforms that you have to pay for. And so they nickel and dime you to piece, but
Yep.
they've boiled the frog, so to speak. We're so used to it now. We're just like, oh, I really wanted to watch, you know, Mythic Quest, for instance, and so
Yep.
I got my free subscription to watch Apple TV. But if I hadn't, probably would have paid for it to watch it, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. It's I'll give you one example. So I'm not an expert, but I have always enjoyed Star Trek. And in the UK, when did it come out? When did Star Trek Discovery first season
Oh,
of that
no,
come
not
out? Three
this.
years ago. So that was on Netflix, but then there was the Picard series in the UK on Amazon. So straight away, you need two different subscriptions if you want to watch both, and if you're a Star Trek fan. And I took out a 7 day Amazon free trial, watched binge watched Picard, and then cancelled it. But I shouldn't. It's just so frustrating. And now Paramount have got their own streaming service, and Star Trek's all on there. Well, sorry, Paramount, I am not buying another subscription service to watch the latest versions. Arno Dorian is in the latest Star Trek, and I'm not going to see it because I'm not taking out another subscription.
Yeah, that annoyed me. I watched all of Discovery, getting hyped for the next season. And I was like, because it ended on a cliffhanger. And I was like, oh, Paramount now owns it.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, great.
Yep.
A show I'll never get to finish. Thanks.
Discovery was great though. I didn't watch.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know? I don't even think I've watched season 2, but season 1 was excellent. I really enjoyed that.
I binged all the seasons.
Mm.
So my heart broke when they put it to a new platform and I couldn't finish it. Because I loved it and I'll never get to watch it. It's just like Supernatural all over again.
Yeah. We're sort of ending on a bit of a bummer.
Quick, think of a joke.
Why don't you both tell me something good about Rebellion? Let's go right back to Rebellion and finish on a good note. Tell me why you enjoy playing it, Declan.
I love the characters, the art style, the gameplay, the meta. The meta.
All good. All good. Jason?
Yeah, it held my interest. It was Assassin's Creed based, which I love. Huge collector, huge fan of the series, you know, the franchise. The characters were really well done. I like the chibi kind of bobblehead version of the characters. I think that turned off some people, but I really like them a lot. You know, and for all of its faults, I really enjoyed the time that I spent in it and the time that I played it. I think I would definitely recommend it to anybody that was a really good fan of Assassin's Creed. I definitely wouldn't turn them away from it.
Nice, but don't do what I did and just give up when the going gets tough.
Not everyone is built for rebellion.
I accept your subtle insult of calling me a filthy casual. Not a problem.
Oh my gosh, putting words in my mouth now.
No, you said it. I'm sure the tapes will show it. All right, Declan, over to you, mate. I'm gonna close the show.
I'm gonna close the show. Go find my phone charger. Charge my phone. And like the addict I am to Assassin's Creed, I will be downloading Rebellion again. I have the space. I will be Act 2. Act 2 will feel my wrath. I don't know why I said that.
All good, mate.
So, in all, Assassin's Creed Rebellion may be one of the most complicated games.
Oh, wait a minute, mate. I know you're about to do your epic summary of the show, but I'm going to rudely interrupt you.
Rude.
Before you close the show, we should say thank you to our guest, to Jason. Where can people find you and follow you and learn more about Mead, Jason?
Oh, they can find me on Twitter under Viral Undead, um, and then the Assassin's Mead is on Blogspot. It's just assassinsmead at blogspot.com.
Awesome.
And thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate the invite. Huge honor. I don't say that lightly. I really enjoyed my time with you guys, and I'm a huge fan of the series. I've been listening to Let's Talk for quite a while now, so really appreciate it.
Ah, no worries, no worries. Thanks for joining us. It's been good. Declan, you may now do your epic show closure.
I love my epic show closures. I feel like I'm at the Oscars doing a speech. Sorry, I've had too much tea today. So as I was saying, Assassin's Creed Rebellion is a game that's hard to pin down to what it is. But I think the best way to sum up, it is such an enjoyable experience. The art style, the gameplay, and the meta is kind of enjoyable. And if you are stuck, I would advise asking the community as well. There is a lot of help. I think I rely on Andrew from Visions of the Past a lot to give me help. He gets bombarded with questions to teach me. But if you have a phone, I would honestly recommend picking it up and giving it a try. And you can send us any screenshots or gameplay questions to Assassin's Creed Let's Talk at gmail.com or on Twitter at AC Let's Talk and at James Quid. And we will try and strong harm James to re-download it and get past the second stage with me together. Friends.
I'm 2 hours into A Plague Tale Requiem and I am really enjoying it. So
yeah, but when you're not playing Plague Tale and you're in bed, you don't need to read.
I'm not thinking about this properly. Yeah, all right.
When you're having breakfast, Assassin's Creed Rebellion.
We're in the library.
Oh dear.
You're on the toilet.
Oh, come on, mate.
That's what we call the library.
So many off-color jokes we could make, but this is a quality show. So,
Quality show.
Yes, Declan.
Quality show. Basically, it's on your phone. It's everywhere, wherever you can be. So can Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
And who does not want to stare at those cute little chipply faces all day? I would buy products if they looked like that. And someone's going to tell me they do, so I'm going to end it there.
All right.
So, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.